I'm sort of in the middle somewhere. Let me try to get side. I'm sort of in the middle of this thing that there's a bunch of, we tried to go through from the pshat, from the pshat, a whole bunch of different meanings in Yetzias Mitzrayim, right? How many did we do already? I had about 5, right? The first one was Zocher Abris. Okay, the number 0 is the calling card one, which doesn't have any content. Like I thought of a nicer way. You could say Chasumish like Teshbach Yetzias Mitzrayim. Like we have Chasumish like Teshbach Emes, but Ani Hashem like Emes, but really Ani Hashem like Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's two different. If you want to think about this Chasum, it's like God never signs emes. Like where did we get that pasuk? Hashem like emes. That's the biggest thing he did. No, that's just the content. That's a contentless word. We could put into that whatever you want, basically. Why? Maybe from Mishami Karnia.
You're explaining why the Torah is so often in the Torah.
I'm trying, how it works, like structurally how it works. I have like a list of 13 different times where you see that. Okay, the second one, you could say that's where we know him from. You could say a lot of things. You could say basically whatever you want. It's just a pshat, like a grammar level explanation, really. You could talk about choisam. You could think about a lot of different things. The second thing we talked about was bris aves, right? Zocher bris, basically, which is not very much. We wonder. It's not very midkash. Visham de levasayin veluni is something like that. Oiseh bris, right? Aguda has this. Baruch Shem Rav Tchasali Yisrael. No, but the good is actually beautiful. If you read, by the way, if you do what I'm doing and you go through the Chemesh, then wherever it says, you see that good trying to be metapel. How do you say? Like he's taking care of every one of these things.
Covering all the bases.
Most all of them, yes, tries to give it. But like even we
at the end. If I don't get up and say Hashem Melech at the end.
We say Lashon Haba. Wait, no. No, what I'm saying is like sometimes we have this debate. Okay, there's Chavre Tanakh Chavre and there's like Chazal Chavre and Chassidus Chavre. Okay, I don't know about Chassidus. We have to get to that another level. But if you read Chazal and you don't know Chumash like by heart, you have no idea what's going on. Like take the most famous drash from the Aguda, right? Which is a very complicated drash. Nobody really understands it. But the Habel Bunim drash, right? Habel Bunim is like a Lebel Minzbeg Mahalach. Basically says like this. Look, there's 4 different times where the Torah says Shaila, Sabunim, and Chiva, and they're different. There's actually 3 different times, right? Aguda uses 1 twice. But there's 4 if you count Kadosh Baruch Hu separately. There's 3 or 4 times. And what's going on? Why are they different? So I have a vertel. It's a shtickle word. Aguda's pshat. I don't know. It's hard to think about it as mamash pshat. Okay, this is the Chulcham, this is the Rusha, this is the Tam, this is Shana Elishon, there's different Gesuos, different versions of this word, and we can make a ganze pshatel. But you don't appreciate what's going on before reading the Chemesh. And Chazal literally knew Tanakh by heart. I mean, they learned in a Chayda, that's what they would do. They were Zilbermans, basically, in that sense. I mean, they just read. I mean, I was thinking Shabbos, because somehow I was seeing that it says, Leikra betchila b'Shabbos, L'melamed Tanoik is akvarim. I don't know about adults. There's a Machlok Zachronim about adults. So there's one pshat that says Mechalli Rabbanam Shabbos because they're learning Nigla on Shabbos, Zangmuna and Shabbos. That says something like that according to some pshat. But it says in the Gemara that you don't learn new things on Shabbos, right? Because it's harder. What basically means that for the Chachamim, Chachmei Hamish, the Chachmei Gemara, most of the things they were learning, they were familiar with. We most of the time we learn something, we're always learning new things. That's Shtitzach do. So of course you can be ma'ayin, you can noch abschatten the alte Sach, but they already knew Kol HaTorah more or less. The Chishes Tedrmesh Nachim Shchem Shtet. It's not so much, by the way. You could go through it in like a year if you have time, and then you know everything. And the same thing with the Gemara, right? If you take I think that it really makes things so much better. You probably know this already. I'm just saying it for the protocol. I'm saying like when I do this every time it opens up Chazal like for even the Yashir, right? So there's this funny machlokes Rav Shmuel Maschal Gnis. What's the Gnis? What's the Shvach? What's going on? But then I made a list. I actually did it. I have to show it to you. And I went here. So there's in Safari. This very nice. You could make. Let me see if you could make source sheets like the. After long. It's not gonna work. I'm just gonna find it on my website. You could make. They have a function like that. We can make source sheets out of different. Psikim, like, and it connects, whatever, it's just useful for the links and stuff. But if you go here, so I made a thing called Haggadah Shel Pesach Hatikos. Let me open it in the thing itself. How do I go there? No? It's inside here. Okay. And I said, what is the Aguda, right? We have a Nisach Aguda, but there's actually a bunch of old Nisach Agudas, right? I just told you this. And I made a nice picture. Like, this is the first Aguda. This is Moshe Rabbeinu's first Aguda. It says basically like this, Zevach Pesach. Chazal, literally, if you actually look in Mechilte, it says, Mikan Shetzirich Loimer Aguda Shel Pesach, something like that. V'amatam Zevach Pesach El Hashem. And then there's second Aguda, Pavizeh, third Aguda, B'choi Yad, V'yikiksha, it's a little longer, right? Fifth Aguda, that's Moshe Rabbeinu's Pashas Yisrael Aguda that people don't usually notice.
I want to say this.
Yisape Moshe, it's Mamash Yisape Yitzias Mitzrayim. That's the first one that was Yisape Yitzias Mitzrayim was Moshe. And you know who he told it to? His Shver. It's a mekan le kol ha'edmas tell the story to their Shver.
The Shver has to come to the Eidem. That's a problem. Which way you go?
The thing was before he had children also there and son.
Yeah, forget the other way he gets like chapped out his son. No?
Right. Okay, and then we have Avodah Miyineh. Avodah Miyineh is Parshas Veschanan. I cut out the pusik so you could see, and then there's Mikra Bekirim. I got the ayam, right? And I made it nice. Okay, and that's basically our Haggadah is this mostly. But then there's if you move on to Sefer Yeshia, you see a Haggadah is Yeshia Ben Nun, which is Koyim Hashem.
Yeah,
this is Yeshia Ben Nun's history of the Jewish people, and of course it comes out with it's mostly a mitzvah. It's a little different. It's very good. It's Koyim Hashem. It's not Mamash Haggadah. But it's a Neviah, like it says B'Shem Hashem. All the other Haggadahs are in our name. No, it's true. If you could think about it, and it's talking about God. It's talking about Avodah Zorah, and not. But and when you see, and now you understand. Okay, so Rav and Shmuel are kind of discussing which pusuk to be madgish. It makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, hello. Call Friedman. I told Chanel to go to Friedman. If you call Friedman, let's find out the story is. If you could, we better from here. Like
make it bigger.
Okay. Someone learning the song.
This is just one. We could probably continue and find some Agudas from Tehillim. There's more. There's Vishayin of Agudah and Navda Melch Agudah and Halal and so on. That's more.
There's another one that people don't make a big deal about it.
No.
It's unbelievable when you see it. When Yiftach talks.
Right.
No, but it's such a. It is so. He says. He makes a whole. There's a whole different word in Yetziat Mitzrayim over there.
No.
Also, I sent you last week. I wanted to tell you also. I never met anyone also about Bilam. He says Kale.
Mitzrayim. No.
What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, he's saying Kel Mitzrayim, like he took them out of Mitzrayim.
He's a really cool God, basically.
No, he's extremely powerful. But you know what Rashi says that he Te'afas Re'eim Loi, meaning that he has like swarms of demons that work for him. In other words, like all these things that like it says, Nagod, Af V'Cheim V'Shem. He's in control of all these things. As you were saying last week, Zachov, like he's manish. He's saying with the Mach.
No. Kol HaMachla not Mitzrayim.
Yeah, Kol HaMachla, the whole thing. It's like a Zachar, like an Einish thing. Like that you see his power of Lenosh. According to this prat.
But that's to do with Anivlei Malach. It's another problem. And I would think about that mostly.
No, but it's also interesting. That's the way I do it.
Okay, verstehe Bilam.
What?
I verstehe Bilam.
No, 1 second. I didn't finish. I wanted to tell you finish that thing of it. But
so he says
wanted to use this one for Mitzrayim.
Right.
So you see this next time.
The big shlikrep. I understand.
That's what
they actually don't say that. They say they have two pshutim, right? One is because it says Kriyas Shema.
Oh, well, because they say that forget. Because it's Kriya Shema, right? Because he lays down.
I think it's also it's interesting. Okay, Parshas Balak. Yeah. Okay, this is if you think. Generally, if you think of it, like there's a lot of another like way of. I'm not gonna get in. I have to be able to get into now. Like another way of thinking about Yetzias Mitzrayim is the story. What is the story? Like the Shira Sazini is one story that doesn't have Yetzias Mitzrayim, by the way. Does it have Yetzias Mitzrayim Shira Sazini? No, basically not. Does Yirmiyah Novi have Yetzias Mitzrayim? Basically not. He always starts from the midbar. It's very interesting. Almost always. Motzachai b'midbar. He literally says, and he says, Zocharti l'chesed nereich lechtechachle b'midbar.
What does that mean? What are you trying to say?
No, nothing. I'm saying that there's different ways of telling the story. Yeshia starts the story with Avram Avinu. He's the only one, you see. I noticed actually, I was looking in, I'm saying too many confused stuff, but let's get back to where we are, because we can't still there. I was just saying, as if you read the Chumash and you see different ways of telling the story, like I'm saying, or different ways of saying the mitzvah and so on, if you know it well, then only then do the Chazal start making sense. Otherwise, you just like, okay, I believe the Gemara probably is such a pasuk. Like, you don't have, It's not because I'm trying to get Shita Shal Mikra, because I want to be Cholik in Chazal. I think that you should have to learn Shita Shal Mikra in order to understand Chazal. If you want to be Cholik, that's great too. But that's the same thing with, for example, Gemara and Mishnah. Like, you have to realize that the Gemara has in its mind the whole Mishnah and the whole Tosefta, basically. And if you learn Masechta Gemara without learning the Masechta Mishnah before, you have no clue what's going on. And probably you should learn also the Tosefta and stuff like that. And then you say, okay, now the Gemara is starting to figure out, okay, what's with another Mishnah? What's with the Gemara keeps on quoting Mishnahs from Klal Shas, and you have to realize that this only works when you know Mishnahs Bal Peh, basically. Because otherwise you get so stuck on figuring out, wait, when we learn in Yeshiva, okay, wait, he's quoting a Mishnah somewhere else, let's go look it up. We have no idea what it's about. Where did you learn it? Where are you from? What's going on? Mishnahs. And the same thing is with, I think that the same thing is with later books, but with a bigger corpus, right? It becomes very hard to follow because you need to know everything. Like Zohar, for example, right? Nobody understands Zohar. You don't understand Zohar if you don't know. Now, forgetting the question who was first, but the fact is that you don't understand Zohar if you don't know all of Mishnah and all of Gemara and all of Chemesh, obviously, and all of Medrash, basically, because he keeps on just talking with Medrashim, and the theological questions that people were struggling with in the times of Rishonim. I'm not gonna. Maybe the Zohar Adrich HaKodesh, I knew them, but basically, it's having a conversation with all these things, and it's beautifully connecting them. Or if you read an Chassidus Sefer, they're basically you don't understand it without knowing. Well, sometimes they're just saying a Medrash and Misser with it. Misser is easy, but whenever he says a Vart, you have to realize that he's trying to he's trying to put together a picture that's based on thousands of different sources and different problems and different answers, and you just start from there, and you only know about those sources. Some of the Babeliches, they know that Rashi existed because the Rebbe said Sichas and Rashi. And then you can understand the Sicha either. They have such narisha diyukim because the Rebbe said you have to learn it. That's my diagram. The branch learn Rashi, learn the Mefarsh Rashi, do what he did. That's just learn the Rashi, learn the Mefarsh. That he's always relating to different people's understandings of Rashi and so on. Oh, now you could get into the Shtickle Torah that he has. You understand? If you don't learn the source, it's all Shtickle Torah, man. Very good. But you can't start from him. That's the Chpirim. It's like someone said that you can't learn. It's learning Mashu without Gemara. You have to learn. Totally. Anyways, but you actually appreciate it like that. That's what I really think, and that's why I that's the when people talk about not learning Achronim and things like that. Sometimes it's not about Gava. Like someone said, if you don't learn Achronim, why should anyone learn you? But you only get Achronim or any later stage when you sort of have familiarity with what's going on. Otherwise, if someone started learning a Pusik Telem, whatever, someone sent me a whole mama, said, very nice mama. Let me first try to figure out what's the okay, I'll have my pshat, and there'll be some holes left. I'll look in that guy. Maybe he'll help me. Maybe he has a whole different way of thinking about why would I can't start from there. It's just gonna ruin my tfisa and the whole story. Okay, where do we want to get into this? So the kids were saying, I was saying, so Lamushal, the first, so the first thing is the Zechra Bris, and it says in the Agud. So you see, I'm saying the Agud uses this, it's one of his things, but of course, this Haftarah starts on Bris Ben Absurim, is 100% right. If you have Chemesh Bereshis in your head, you think, where did God promise us first to take us out of Mitzrayim? Oh, in Bris Ben Absurim. And of course, we start getting into Pshat. What does it mean, what it says there, and it doesn't actually say, by the way, it doesn't say Mitzrayim in Bris Ben Absurim. Chazal were 100% right. You start noticing that. It doesn't say anything about Mitzrayim. Maybe it doesn't even mean Mitzrayim. Maybe it means Plishtim. It doesn't say. Steht nicht. Steht nicht about Mitzrayim. We're just assuming that it means Mitzrayim. But who says? Maybe it doesn't. And it says, Ani Hashem Hashzichim Yekaznim. It's a whole different. Maybe it was before. Maybe then it was maybe Taka means from Yitzchak. But you start thinking. And I actually think that that's what that good is saying now that I'm thinking, right? V'hishamda, because Taka is saying what V'hishamda means V'hi, right? Nobody knows what the Taj V'hi, right? I mean, the Chassidim say it means like Glezel Bro, but because my beam is like us, but that's also Pikabula. They say, no, it's Pikabula, but Pikabula means the Shechina, right? The Klesel Bruch. Now, remember the Maril said that you should do that because that's what it means, and nobody knows. But anyways. That's the title. And what was I saying? But it means the Bris Ben Absurim. The Shaykh is the Bris Ben Absurim Lavasan because it doesn't say anything about Mitzrayim there. It just says whoever will Who says it's about Mitzrayim? Maybe it's about now. Maybe it's about the Nazis.
He's saying that he is what? He is. What do you answer?
The Haggadah is saying a medrash also is also trying to make it relevant, right? That's another thing that Haggadah is trying to be metabolized in that shtickle, right? Firstly, he's trying to firstly, he's taking the first thing that the Torah seems like Ve'eskres Berisa, which is the first thing it says in the Torah about Yetzias Mitzrayim, the first time, right? Ve'eskres Berisa, V'chat and not Ve'eskres Berisa, Ve'iskelim as Berisa, right? Ve'iskelim as Berisa, and Parshas Shemos. So that's the first thing. In other words, this is the Berisa from Bris Ben Epsere, Baruch Hashem Rav T'chosel Yisrael. And then Haggadah goes on to say, "Was haben ins von dem?" After the saying, the whole Bavizel Hashem lead, the whole.
Isn't he shown before the Bikurim?
Yeah, but it says this before. Baruch Hashem Rav T'chosel Yisrael. The Haggadah Shel Pesach said, "No, you said I made that up. I didn't make that up." The Haggadah Shel Pesach looked as a. Yeah, the Haggadah Shel Pesach says like this. No, Baruch Hashem Rav T'chosel Yisrael before. No, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, it's later. It's very
No, come on.
It's right there.
Baruch Hashem Rav T'chosel Yisrael. Of course. Shagish Baruch Cheshav Zaketz Lask Mishim Lavon Avinish. And Nema Vayim Lavon B'dei Teda. Gamas Agoy Shavay Dananach Vachin Etz Berchesh Gadol. It quotes Bris Ben Absonim. This is before. This is like his like dumb sort of to the Rami Vidovi, right? And Vehi Shamda. Maza Vehi. Who's the he? Vehi is this. Aftuch Hashem Rav. Shagish Baruch. It's not the Ketz. He somehow decided to talk about Cheshav Zaketz.
Yeah. How did this get in also?
The Cheshav Zaketz is not a saying, because it has to do with the. But I'm saying that what he's saying is that. In other words, the same Aftuch that God gave to Avraham Avinu is because the guy was man azeh and so ich verstehe nicht dort Mitzrayim steht Eretz lo lehem. Ich weiß whenever there's going to be Eretz lo lehem.
You're saying it's not Muslim to Mitzrayim.
Yeah, that's the good as medrash. I mean, how else does it work? This Aftuch, that's everyone's mother. That's the pshat. This Aftuch shel Avraham Avinu was one episode. He shamd the Lavasana Velone. How was he shamd? He went out of Mitzrayim already. Shat as Leipzig came in Hitler, lost has to pay us then. That's why they give us a lot of money in Germany. Because Achna Chanya Yetzer Berchesh Gadol. That's not Parashat Posei. My side still gets money from the we live noch von der Chevre. Was? Darf noch geben noch.
Other countries they want to get from.
Sender? Shami Azeh. Okay, so how do I get to this? Also, this is the first. I'm just going back to my list. That's the first thing. The second thing was the part of Veitzaki b'nei Yisrael Hashem of Shemet. I called the Shemati Kechan and Oni, right? I have to look if the Pusik is ever told that kind of idea in Yetzias Mitzrayim. I don't remember a Pusik that says this lesson from Yetzias Mitzrayim, because the Pusik usually says Ki Eved Yisabet Mitzrayim, which is not the same thing. But it does say, you know where it says in the Haggadah? It doesn't say in the Haggadah, right? The Haggadah does sort of say this story, because the Mikra B'Kirim says this story. Right, but Mikra B'Kirim says this story. V'nitzak al Hashem, v'yitzayni Hashem. It doesn't say v'nitzak al Hashem, v'yizkar Hashem as Berisa or something like that.
Yeah, the story of the... interesting, it says brings in v'nitzak al Hashem. That's also interesting. That's the story of that Parshas Kisavei says. Parshas Kisavei tells the story that God listened to our prayers, but it makes a lot of sense, because this is like a tefillah, because this is like, it's like literally like a nisach of Toida. If you think of a lot of nisachos of Karm Toida that we have in Tehillim, they all go like this, right? The most famous one is the Hoidi from Erev Shabbos, right? Kapitel Kif, I don't remember what, something. But all of them, there's more of them, and they all go. And Hallel has 3 of them. In the Hallel Mitzvah has like 3 versions of this kind of structure. In Hafti, in Mena Metzar, and in 2 versions, and maybe the 3rd. And it says, and God helped us, and that's what we say by the Toida. That's a first Kalm Toida. That's what I was saying. There's Hafti and Moshe, but it's a Hemshech. It's not really. We just cut it up, so we think that it's 2. I think that's really a Hemshech. You also have to see it in the original.
What? That's another thing. I have a whole shtickle somewhere about Hallel. Maybe I'll publish it for Pesach. People have no idea what's going on, because we keep on cutting it up. And the cutting up makes also sense, but only makes sense if you realize what's going on.
Cut up and repeat.
Okay. Repeat. Alles macht sense if you realize what's going on. But the Kapunim, but I'm saying there's a twist. There's a twistness the twist goes, it goes, and people don't realize. People think that Hallel is about Kusha. It's not kind of Kusha. It's just that's his tzipper. It's tzipper nes. That's how it works. Tzipper nes always goes like this. So when I was at Surah, sometimes it starts before that Surah. You know, I thought I got my gate, and then it was such a Surah, and I chagishregen, and God helped me, and therefore I'm bringing a carbon to it. These are the 3 steps of every nischadu, and you could there's like 10 kapitel chtilim that say the same. They all have different prutim, but this is the structure. And we could ask why we repeat the tefillah by the idol, but as I said, man, it's basically just telling the story. Sometimes I say that because when a person is in a tzura, he doesn't know how to be mispal, shvach hamoich, and so we have to be mashlim the tefillah later. That's the pshat of the noidrim b'shes tzura. Like when I'll come to Beis Mikdash, I'll give you the tefillah. That's Nadir Lashem Hashem. Means that you come to it. When you bring the come to it, then you do it for real. But that's what it says in the Haggadah. That's why Haggadah's Bekidim is a Tefillah Seidah. It's literally that, right? And so it's saying, it starts from Mitzrayim, but really it's about Hayom, right? And it says this story. Well, it starts from Arami, whatever that means. But it says, when Mitzrayim, and it's schrecklich, and I'm geschrigen, and I bestell geht, Vayar, this is right, Vayar is, and this is the Pusik, Vayar Elim as Bnei Yisrael, right? And he brings that Pusik, right? And this is also, by the way, what I do sometimes with Mefarish Psikim, all that Psikim, that's literally what the Medrash does, right? Shenema. This is the kids of Vayanamas, so what's Vayar is, Vayar Elim as Bnei Yisrael. Then he explains what's Amalani and so on, that's Lachatzani, is what is Shtet, V'gamri is Lachatz, it's Mamish, he beautifully corresponds these two Psikim, and you see, that's like a Pshat. This is Pshat, this is not Medrash, you see. This is Pshat. Amalani as Eli Abunim is maybe a drash. Again, it's not a drash, it's just connecting that to that. Kemusha Nema, Shenema. But it's just meaning, what is bad generally going on is this is a kitzur, and he's referring you to the Arichas, basically. But it's showing, what I'm saying is, this is the big story. V'etzeni Hashem Mitzrayim, al yedei tzaka sani. And the lesson clearly from this, if you think the lesson, it says, hand was in Ochen Gulis, that auch schreien, and God will take us out. And it says in some of the Shainim that say sometimes, I don't remember right now a source for that, but that's the message. It's a very different message from the message of Shem Rav Tchusa, you realize. And this has to do with two very different ways of telling the story of Gulis and Ge'ela, more generally.
Different than Shem Rav Tchusa, what do you mean?
Yeah, because according to Shem Rav Tchusa, we don't have to do anything. We just have to trust that God is true, and God will be Mekayim Rav Tchusa. He doesn't lie. In the Vanitzak version, we have to do something. You have Shrine, and this Shrine might not work. Or maybe he'll wait for the next cat. There's always excuses. It's two very different ways. Like, of thinking about the Golis and Ge'ela generally. I'm thinking, how important Tefillah is, how important is... you don't generally hear this kind of... First time I heard it was a Chiddush to me. That's why I'm saying like this. Like, in Mitzrayim is not so I'm not geschrigen. So therefore, you have to be mispal for the Mashiach or whatever. Very few people will tell you such a story. Even the Gudish L'Paisach doesn't say that story when he gets to that part, right? He has more Shem of Tchusa. Okay, that's I do. It's just Kastira that he say, but okay, so that's the second thing.
Not to talk Shnora, they say.
What?
Not to talk Shnora.
Say that's doing Chiv. That's another thing.
No, it's a Chinoi. Why they're not going out? Because it's
that's
why the Chod Schreiber is the Soire, the Seif Azmanim.
This is a very important man. That doesn't. Yeah. By the way, Lishnara, I was thinking unrelated, but that Lishnara in that sense doesn't mean Lishnara. I was looking at the Medrash because the Medrash talks about this. It means Mesira more. Tiltoirin doesn't mean talking bad one on each other. It means we don't let our Lishnara get out to the street. Pare doesn't hear. Of course, they eat my stack. That's auch in der Adava. Shesh bam Diltoiren. Diltoiren is not Masapra Lishnara. It's people that air your dirty laundry in the street. It's a ganz andere sort idea. Even Chazals, by Uchan they say, in Uchan, not exactly. I think it's very different. Maybe Lishnara means this. Ich weiß nicht. But in Uchan Chazals say this, right? And Mashiach comes to him. Wer ist gewesen? Meinst du, ich bin I'm your informant. What is this? Figure it out yourself. It's very sharp for thought because God knows. I'm gonna find the guy. I'm gonna make a goyel, kill you. The goyel is whatever he has to do. But that's my lie. That goyel is a natural thing, right? It's not God. But anyways, but he's saying there's something wrong with being how do you say, like an informant? How do you say, like what we call a moise basically? It's like
breaking a bris.
Yeah, something like we have it's like more megalis sod, right? Like Yida Ben Gair. Why is it their business? We're allowed to have our own space where we hack on the Reimes, and we know that when we go to them, we're not going to tell this to them. That's the Choshtain, yeah? We would have Shimbach was not Mashiach. He didn't tell that to the Reimes. Of course, when he went to them, he said, what do you think? Okay. It has to do more with Shmiras Soid. That's really... yeah. It's negated to a lot of things, yeah. I very much think that Shmiras Soid is important. And even, like I'm saying, even Be'ochan, so it's for the Eibishter, hätte ich gefragt. It's for the Eibishter. The Eibishter, it's backwards, but it's like, And people see that it's very complex, these things. I'm just giving a different idea. Okay, but Chazal say that, and when they say the schis, if you still they count it, they say they didn't tell them. They have a different raya. I remember the raya from something else. They have a different raya in here in Parshas HaChodesh. There's a machloikus in the Mechilta if it was a schis, because one shot. Here, one shot here. This is. But let me tell you why it's my eye. This is what machloikus, right? The machloikus. The someone said the Masim Mecherish talked about every life, but said he don't have a mitzvah, so he gave them dan Pesach and dan Mila. And this is my kappa side. The 4 mitzvahs I know that they did. Why you tell me that they need dan Pesach and dan Mila? So maybe we'll have to be dan Pesach and dan Mila differently. and he says Avos. We know from.
Oh, it says these 3 things?
4.
No, he says these 3 things.
4 things. Arais, Lashon Hara, Shmam, Lashon.
This is the regular Mechilta?
This is the Mechilta in Chodesh, yeah.
What's this thing that they say you don't find it? They don't.
No, Malbisham doesn't say.
Oh,
that's a different word. Okay, this is here. I don't know. There's different kistos. I'm telling you what it says here. And he said, Arais, we know from Benish Mitzri, right? Achasoi Seper Sama Kosef. Lashon Hara, we know because it says V'sh'al Isham Ishchenta. It says 12 months. What's Shnayim as a Chodesh? Because Moshe Hatching Zug days free, some apparently, right? From the first time he told him, right? And Shemas he tells them this, and no Mitzri found out that this is the plan. Of course, it wouldn't have worked if they found out, right? So that meant that they. That's how I know that that's the pshat. And of course, Ochanei Aduvas means about that because it's telling Paray that Moshe killed. Okay. Right. So that's the second thing is Sakas. Third thing that we discussed was what? That's the second thing, right? Like Tzakas Le'Vamayra, that's what I'm discussing now. So this is the 3 things. One is the Chosem, one is the Bris, 3 is the Avlis. The 4th that I discussed was the Yeshalcha Bincha. Wait, the 4. That's my side. Okay, maybe I'm out of order, but that's in my mind. That's the order. The 4th is Yeshalcha Bincha. In other words, really that Yetzias Mitzrayim is about answering the question. It's interesting to understand how what the teretz is. I don't know what the teretz is. I know what the kasha is. You understand? The kasha is what was in other words, what I'm teeing off with this third thing is very interesting because you read. And this is also interesting because if you read like certain achronim, I think it's achronim that start asking the question this way, which is another interesting thing to notice. Well, I was looking at Shluch, for example, and he quotes the Kodesh because he asked the kasha, "Wo sieht Yetzias Mitzrayim as wichtig?" And the way he asked this kasha is like this, very interesting. He says, "The Torah is doch netzchi." So what are you telling me that if there wouldn't have been Yetzias Mitzrayim, there wouldn't be a Torah? Kili the Tulitani B'Dleitani. It's Torah the Lamalam and Azman thing, the truth in some contingent story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. How could this be? That's the question that he has. It's very interesting. How interesting this question is. If you're like a Mizrachis, you say, no, the Torah is not Nitzchi. That's why I'm against Mizrachi, understand? Because they think that the Torah is really about contingent things. Yeah? That's why and the Teretz is 9. So what's basically his Teretz? It's Yetzias Mitzrayim is when I was of the Binah. Basically means it's not going out of Binah. That's as far as I can understand what he's saying. Which is very interesting because Para is Binah, Gai Verstei, but okay, that's another discussion. And where the Tivra really, to him, Tivra not differentiated yet. It's not about being Ra. Somehow it comes into Ra. Okay. So, and Yetzias Mitzrayim is about the Teferes being born. That's basically the pshat of the ultimate Kabbalah, I guess. I don't know if it says in the Torah, but it's Arizal's pshat, and he more or less. Maybe I'm reading that Arizal into him, but anyways, that's what he says.
There was a different. The kasha wasn't a kasha.
So Beketz it. No. So in other words, how does this teretz work? That Mitzrayim is takenish v'gim Mitzrayim. It's a symbol for Sfiras Abina, for whatever. Then what Arizal said, the good and whatever. It's a symbol for some problem in Matzilas, and Mitzrayim is just doesn't take mean Mitzrayim is going with Pada and going with Grade. Pada was also an instantiation of that thing, right? So it's not that it's not connected. It's not connected because Pada was only a hechatims of this clip or whatever it is, this thing happening in reality, because everything in reality is a shadow of these elements. But it sort of doesn't answer the question. In other words, it sort of accepts the question to be correct. That's what I'm getting at. It's very important to me. In other words, that's what people. I feel like there's some really funny confusion here, and I think they're playing tricks on us. I don't know. Maybe I have a better way of thinking about this. When you ask this kasha, the Torah is doch nicht schief, was kommt da mit Mitzrayim? Wie Schleim, es meint nicht Mitzrayim. Kitze. So you take a choilik on the idea that the Torah is nicht in the sense of Mitzrayim being eternally important. Of course not. The Mitzrayim is a contingent thing. I use the word contingent because that's the it's a thing that happened in a certain space, in a certain time. And of course, if you're in Japan, was hast du mit Mitzrayim? But hat's ja mit Mitzrayim elyoina, right? In other words, the question is basically like this: why would a goy care about Mitzrayim? It's basically the same question, right? Why would we care about time that's so long? That's another way of asking it. So long but really he's asking a much more yesoded question. He's asking, how could it be that the Torah Halikis is Tully and Dvurim she pink happened in this world? So they can't nicht sein Mitzrayim, imagine. So they can't nicht sein. Right? And instead it is that mitzad
Hello?
again. And the Teretz says that's nicht. The only thing that's nitzchi is not that this Yetzias Mitzrayim is not. But in other words, let's say this. His Teretz is number one, as far as I can tell. Now we have to get into this. Number one, Mitzrayim. If there would not have been Yetzias Mitzrayim, there would be a Torah, right? In other words, it's not a particular thing that's tuli in a particular thing that happened in a particular time, in a particular place, in a particular island. It's not. But that Torah itself can be called Yetzias Mitzrayim, al derech Moshel, right? Al derech, however you want to call it. And then not, of course. In other words, Yetzias Mitzrayim is the guy for Goyim also. That's another way of saying it. And of course, they would never agree with it because it's all about Kizri's way of thinking. But that's another question, right? In other words, let's go to you could be like a Lubavitch and do this, right? Let's go in Japan, like they don't think about Goyim. But let's say if you think about Goyim, let's say in some Pesach, you get it from Goyim, what's the Pesach Lashem? It's Cham Pesach Mefilish, right? Right? Now I want to get to that Pesach today. It says Ger, but Ger means in Goy. In other words, his Zayd was never in Mitzrayim. The Pesach is asking this kasha. The Rambam had this kasha. How could you say I should never say? Remember the Ravadia Ger asked the Rambam, what's up Pesach? Rebbeinu Shalom. If you get it from Goy, what's the Pesach Lashem? What's going on? I thought Pesach is key. What the Ger got to do with anything? It's not saying get the kasha, right? Some version Pesach that a Ger makes Pesach, right? Why?
I was just a chiddush like that. It said, yeah, okay.
What's the chiddush?
No, that said that that's a special parsha about it.
No, I think this the parsha. I actually think that Al Pipshat, and again, Chazal work with this, and you have to remember that they're not forgetting. They have a different gather of ger and so on. But Al Pipshat, the Torah is actually very interested in a lot of mitzvahs. Are these mitzvahs only for the original Jews, or are they also for Gairim? And in Sikkos it says it's not for Gairim. Kol Ezrach B'Yisrael Yasla. It's Lafik Gairim, right? Every touch. Other psikim it says Kager Ke'Ezrach. It's literally, I don't know all people. I don't have a theory of why, but I see the Torah being worried about this. Some mitzvahs for Gairim, some mitzvahs for not. Sometimes it's privilege, maybe, you know. Lager could eat on a weile, lager why? Because he's not Kodesh, right? Some other things are for Gairim, right? It's machlok, it depends, you know. And Chazal basically said, there's a Gatosh, whatever it means, but it's true. Akapunim Pesach is for Gairim also. You have to just be b'mila. You can't be oral, and you can't be a benachai. You have to malzach. But Pesach is for everyone. And Chamaydei Kasha, how shaykh is. Okay, we still have to get to that pshat about the Vedazor. But I could put him in the Kabbalah pshat that I was quoting here. It means basically, what do you mean? Because Mitzrayim, Mitzrayim, who cares? So it's not important. It's just a symbol for the Mitzrayim Al Yaina. Mitzrayim Al Yaina has nothing to do with Mitzrayim. It means Sfira Sabina. You have to, if you want, you could say like the Chassidus, retranslate it to your, you know, the Shchorim, the whites were enslaved the Shchorim, so that's their Mitzrayim. It means because it literally means the same thing. Mitzad Shirish, because there's such a thing as Shibrit, and it means Klippas being Nechas, whatever, and there's something called Chayras, which means and so on. And that's an abstract thing. So all they're doing with these Mekabolim is actually saying that basically like the Rambam would say. The Rambam would basically say something very similar, just without such elaborate symbols. It would say, it seems the Rambam is about knowing about God, and that's only a attempt to know about God. Of course, everyone should know about God, not only Yid, and not only people that were happy.
Rambam would say to know about God?
What do you mean? What's the?
Mitzrayim?
No, everything is to know about God. Yeah, of course. We have to.
Mitzrayim is like more need this.
Okay, well, that's yesh la'ayin, you know. And there's I have to show you. No, the Rambam does say it. The Rambam says 5 different things. The Rambam says 5 different things about Yetzias Mitzrayim. And we don't realize because it's in the physics in 5 different perukim of Tamim mitzvahs. Then you have to figure them all out together. No, I'll show you. I was looking at. Okay, I don't know about 5. I made up the number. There's a few times that he talks about Yetzias Mitzrayim. Probably 5 times. Probably 5 times. Probably 5 times. Like I'll put him. But Ram generally would say everything is about knowing God. It's time was to know God. That's why I could skip Tashet Sichur because I get to Hashem Lekecha. That's this thing, and the Mekabbalim say something very similar. They just said, but you do need Mitzrayim because Mitzrayim is a way of very specific way in which the whatever the Olim Salayanim work, and therefore it's important to talk about Mitzrayim. It's not the Nemshlum, it's not the Shvira undertaking. Whatever you want to talk about it, you know. Shine. So that's a Kabbalistic teretz. I know that. I think we don't realize how radical that is. People think that for some reason, this is my kasha all the time. People think that means that Kabbalah saved the particularistic Judaism. That's how it's being faked. They just saved the language, but they didn't. And then some people say, okay, but Api Kabbalah, there's real difference between Yid and a Goy, but that's not either true. Because Kabbalah is going to say, what's mind Yid? Yid mind, and it's the other way around. If you have. He says there's nothing, the contingent level, the Olam Hazeh level of being Yid is not interesting, only the Neshama level. Now he happens to think that Goyim don't have it. Besides that, let's Yesh La'ayim, there's Shnashal, that's really a contingent question. Like, possibly that Goyim do, probably some Goyim, the Baal Shem said, maybe some Goyim do. We have to get into the details of this Shaila, but forget, you are moitzi the Indian of being a Yid with that Pshita. The whole idea of Nefesh Elokis is moitzi the concept of being a Yid with that Pshita. It says that being a Yid means having a very abstract connection, or whatever. I don't know how you translate the Chelik el-Karmal, okay, whatever it means. That's what it means. Now, think Goyim Amas Yoga. That's already a contingent question. That's already a question of Olam Hazeh. Hom is Goyim there, the other nish. We'll figure it out. That's another question.
They're saying the Pashas of the Yid is not this. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. They don't believe in Yetzias Mitzrayim in the literal. And somehow when people look at this, so I don't understand. I think there's a confusion here. Maybe there's a different way of thinking about this, but to me it's a bit confusing. And yeah, and the Baal Shem Tov and the Torah Makdam of Tzilas Yaakov Yosef basically says that the Torah is nitzchi in the sense that there's a rachnis de pshat for all the mitzvahs, and that's what it really means. This is mamash reform. This is the hepach nitzchi the Torah al pi pshat. Maybe the Rambam would agree, but it's very interesting that's the Chassidish Torah have this, and they're from the this. I don't know, maybe the Baal Shem Tov and so on. Because what do you mean the Torah is nitzchi? Macht dich nicht kein Pekam Pesach. Teretz is kein Pesach meant Shabbat on the Machshach, whatever. It means some mitzvah or some spiritual idea. But he says this literally. He doesn't say Chab noch Areim is on Pesach, because otherwise the kasha. Maybe I'm thinking too much. Maybe he doesn't mean the question like Teretz so seriously. Okay. Kapunim, that's the shlu and things like that. But my chiddush was to say, and this is another thing that I tried to get with the Chumash, that the Chumash had this problem. Because he says Ki Yishal Chaben Chamazois, and in my reading, and the different pshat in the pasuk also, but in my reading it means why we're doing a Korban Pesach. Korban Pesach is for the damsel, the Latav and the Mitzrim. Why we're doing it now? V'yash Loima. I don't know what the V'yash Loima is. I see. I don't know even V'amatam Zevach Pesach Il Hashem. So now it's a Korban Toid, and now it's not a Korban.
That's what it says. That's what it says.
No, I'm not.
No.
And Hamshach of that pasuk because it's Chikas Pesach. After they went out of Mitzrayim, it says that. But I'm just saying, no, it says Ki Tovaya Loretz. Always the Shal is Ki Tovaya Loretz, Ki V'yacha Hashem, Ki V'yacha, and then your kids will ask, right? Because the kids were not in Mitzrayim, so you could say it. Al Pi Pshat Mamash, you don't have to say like I'm saying. You could say, so the kids didn't hear of Yetziat Mitzrayim, so this will be a Hechatim for you to tell them about Yetziat Mitzrayim. I somehow put into this the Shar for the Kasha, which is like I quoted from Yeshia, from the Bnei Gad Nariv and the Yisai for Yeshia, which said like Maluni v'lechalek b'kar Yisrael, Ma Kesha. V'yash Loim b'stoch from Mitzrayim, but it doesn't answer the question. I'm pretty sure that the Chazal were very conscious of this question and they explicitly discussed it. I don't think it's a modern subshatel. The whole Mishnah that says B'chol Deh V'doir is literally trying to answer this question. And the Agudah Shel Paris has like 3 different answers to this question. V'ish Amdu, and there's another teretz which is Lois Avasani Levad Sheili Ha'Lo It's a ganze subshatel. We could have still been in Mitzrayim. That's a historical pshat. It's not Al Pi Kabbalah. It's saying Trachtaran must have been in Mitzrayim Nachal. So yeah, so it's always about you, right? And of course, people like before come with these funny questions. Yeah, maybe someone else would take us out. It's hypothetical. It's like alternative history questions. Yeah, but Lamaster, this is what happened. It's a very funny question. Like there's a Chassidish Tats, the Sharach HaMishin. No, like why do you need all these funny pshutim? It's simple what he's saying, right? This is what happened. That's why it's relevant to you. But that's one pshat. And you can think about other. And I keep on saying that I think that the Gemara in Shabbos really thinks that it's not Nagaya anymore for this reason. But really for slightly other reasons. And that's the Medor Rabbi Reisa and so on. Okay. No. Medor Rabbi Reisa, Al Pi Ramban, means that the Bris of Yetzias Mitzrayim was Butul. And now we have a new one. Okay. Now, the Tanai, he says it a little differently. I'm exaggerating. The Ramban doesn't say anything like I said. But okay, don't believe me. You look it up, you'll see what he says. Yeah. Now, okay, so that's the my fourth pshat, I guess, right? And the fifth pshat was that I talked about Chava Anish, and last week in my class I went into a lot more eyes, because I think that literally Anoich Hashem Lakech was saying this, and possibly V'hoya, the other pasuk in Ma'amad Sinai, it says like this on the in this pasuk, but that's Im Shema Tishmi Bekoili V'yisem. It says like this. I'm going to tell you about this pasuk, right? And I'm just Mitzrayim. Es es kann man schon mehr mal. Va'ato. Im schmat ich mir bekoid, ich schmat das ist das gelo kalam kli kalorets. Stop. This is a very weird pussy because it's a tnai, and it doesn't figure out the other side, right? It doesn't, it's not tnai kufel, right? It's not tnai when I go to tnai even. These on this gill, it says, and if not, the Chazal were smart, they said, yeah. Im lav sham tek v'raschem. It's very written very nicely, but basically it's saying something like this. You remember what I did to the Mitzrim? Thanks, yeah? Now you have a choice. You could accept my mitzvahs and then be Sigilim Kalamim. Stop. You noticed what happened? Now you could either pay my protection. I didn't say anything. This is a threat. This is a very beautifully veiled threat, and it says only the beautiful one side. Chazal said this is what he's saying. You laughed something for Raschem. You could go back. You could go back to Mitzrayim, no problem. You saw that. You saw what I did to Mitzrayim, right? Yeah, that's what I could do. That's Ivritach. It's a schreckliche Ivritach. But I think that's a way of reading the passage.
It's not like Rashi.
I understand. Defend the Medrash. I thought that's a funny idea because it should have said Liadaha, Fiyash L'daik. I don't think that Medrash was meant literally, right? I didn't think that the heart was on top of their heads. It's just a way of showing that this whole thing. The Ramban says this. The Ramban, this also, I think, I read it into the Ramban. He says that the kfiyah is not really, the kfiyah is really the schavoinish of the Torah. It's not really the heart. That's not the word. It didn't start there. It's mean to say that he promised them at Yisrael and everything, Almanas and Ibnish, they can say ganze Mitzrayim. When that's the kfiyah. In other words, that's the way he says it is. So we're out of it. So it's finished. Anyways, okay. Then I was thinking last week about the fact did we go back to Mitzrayim or did we go back to Puvel? Something very interesting. The Machlokes Yeshia and Sefer Devarim, and it doesn't in reality both of them happen, so it's very interesting because and Sefer Devarim basically literally says this, and it's mamish beautiful if you read the Torah. And this is another person that I have to show you. The Torah, but it's mamish if you read Kisava, right? This is in my but Kisai. Sorry, if you read Kisavai, where's the pusik? If you read Kisavai and you go to the end of the Klilis, it says literally this, okay? It says, Im loitish malases, yeah? V'ifla Hashem's makos, chava heishiv, b'chos, kol madam Mitzrayim asher yigoyim p'naim. In other words, remember the pusik, l'machla ashtantim Mitzrayim l'usim alecha? This is the V'im loy. The V'im loy took a long time to get to, but we got to it very explicitly. V'im loy. And you know what? Chonach Makitz that I didn't write here. That's like the Medrash said. This is the worst pusik ever, right? The mind says again, Chonach Nach. Anyways, the kids of the Shatam Samad, Vavitzcha Hashem Bagum Nasagya, and what will happen? Vashivcha Hashem Mitzrayim Banias, but Derech Hashem Mat Lechaloi Sois Feilreis. So, Makat Hashem Lavud Lashvuchas L'Enkornet. This is you have to be such a tifa like klula to say this pusik because it's mamish. It's more. It's saying like this. Remember Yetziat Mitzrayim. Remember when is Yetziat Mitzrayim? Kriyas Yamsef, of course, right? What is it? Remember what I said to Yetziat Mitzrayim? Asher Risam Mitzrayim Ayam L'Sif L'Roisim V'Dadoylem. He quotes that. Yeah, but remember that I said that? Yeah, that was all tnai. That was not for real. You could go right back, and you know how you're gonna go back with a ship. I'm not even gonna split the yam for you. It's for with a ship. That's like for. And you think you can go back? You think you know what? Avodah mean lefarav Mitzrayim. Sikvein Zechania Sadugash Nechel Mitzrayim. Guess what? You'll try. You wish that you'll go back to that. You'll get even worse. It's gonna be even worse than that than Mitzrayim. Because in Mitzrayim you're at least avodah mishpachas. You got some avtichim stuff. It's really, if you chap what he's referring to, it's really, but and Amat L'Zilba has a different pshat. He says, he tries to be mefarish l'tof. So he says, Shivch Hashem Mitzrayim b'aniyos, that the Kriyas Yam Sif is the concept that we can't go back to Mitzrayim because the Yam geshpot. So he says, we don't go back through that thing. We go back and be made b'chtzoyis with aniyos. But that made me realize what the pshat is saying, the opposite is saying. Because I'm not even going to split the sea back. You're going to go back with a ship. Okay? Now, on Kapunim, that's my proof that, and then he says this, by the way.
There's not going to be a bitul.
Right, there's a certain oimik where B'ris Mitzrayim stays. That's his word. That's a chsidish word, but it's not pshat. And then you see that Moshe Rabbeinu says this. Then he says, Atam re'isem Hashem. What does he say? Did you notice what Moshe Rabbeinu is always madik when it says by Yetziat Mitzrayim? Atam re'isem Hashem le'naychem. Does he say Atam re'isem that he took you out of Mitzrayim? What does he say? You see what I got to do Mitzrayim. You saw how Masas Gedolas was the Getin, right? Heusen, they gain Yamsif, and they gain Makras Damens for that, and so on. And you still didn't realize. That's the Chalta Shmoire. And then, yeah, I gave you the essence of drinking in the midbar. You see what I could give you good in the midbar, I could give you bad like I did to Mitzrayim. So please, Ishmael was different everybody says. The man that's skilly, don't be dumb. It doesn't mean dumb. That skilly means that's lichi, but that's and I think that's what Hashem Lekecha was saying. Ashat Mel Mitzrayim. Li'el cholim achayim ki Hashem Lekecha. Elkanah. Last time I asked the Kasha, you were here. I said that it can't be the pshat that the Rishonim said that the Asher Tzlichu is the reason why you should be mechiv to Hashem, because then it would have to be the key. Would have to be that. That is a Kasha the Pusik. Peter Ramban, or even Al Pi Chazal, the Mechilta, Kibli Gedet Melchise said like that. Ani shekvaltu Melchise Mitzrayim. Therefore, li'el cholim achayim. Right? That's how Chazal. That's how some the Chazal read and the Rishonim. But that's Nistam Pshitish al Mikras. The Pusik himself says Nasinas Tam. Says Anei Asher Tzlicha. Li'el cholim achayim l'shtach v'n'les of them key. Why? It doesn't say ki anoich Hashem Mitzrayim v'kibalti Melchise Mitzrayim, which is what you were expected to say according to this pshat. It says ki anoich Hashem lekecha Elkanah. It's a different thing. Maybe they read the key differently. But I usually think that key is an Asinas Tam. Say that on the law, but the law is the Ikka Kabbalah Samach Hashem is not enough to do. That's enough Kemin. I mean, at least one of them. According to my pshat, it's true. It makes it now. According to me, the whole position makes sense. I took out of Mitzrayim, was gesehen was Cholik Nitzim Mitzrayim. And I don't forget. You bet now you listen to me, because otherwise ich bin Elkanah. Just I was Elkanah in the Mitzrayim. And I also don't forget. It's my you'll see.
Why didn't he say Yeshasisi in the Mitzrayim?
Said it's Bekitze. It's Miramis. He said that before, you know. It's Bekitze, but I'm saying that if you understand Mitzrayim as the biggest example of the Oynish, Shekoidim, right? Then you understand very well how the Pusik connects to itself. And by the way, this whole Poikit of Anos Labunin is extremely important to the Torah. I know that Chazal tried to invatel it. But it's extremely important because what it's saying is the mind says this guy to get, right? Nicht nur die guy to get, the Zayda noch gegangen get. Don't worry. You don't basically people only remember 3 generations. Nobody remembers more than that. God remembers 4 generations. Your Einik will suffer for this. It's very important, and that's good the story of Mitzrayim. Doirevi, remember? Doirevi Yeshiva Haina? Saying Mitzrayim, you could be bad for 4 generations. God has that much patience. And therefore you should not learn from the fact that it's got to get that everything is good. Just like you know why? Because Mitzrayim had that mistake. Mitzrayim,
you had the mistake.
Mitzrayim thought, look, Rosh Mamlucha is Koya, whatever it says in Yecheskel over there. It's very, it's got Magan's gate, right? And then what happened after 4 generations? Then you can't get anymore, right? And the same thing could happen to you. I remember for 3 and 4 generations. Very important part of the whole idea of God in the Bible. Okay. So that was the pshat of Schava. That's my favorite pshat. I don't know that nobody likes this pshat because we don't believe in Schava. No, we don't sell it. I take it down because I'm from the pyramid and I say that this pshat was true in Bayis tradition and now it's not true anymore because we already finished this. We finished the whole Torah. You realize, right? Now the whole Torah is now the Gulas Bayis Shani is the Gulas from the Rabbanan. Because the whole Gulas from the Raisa was done. We finished the whole Torah. And by the way, we went back to Mitzrayim and tried to become a Avad Mishpachas. When you read Yirmiyah, you see that that's what happened. Right? It's true. We did. So the end. So we're back in Mitzrayim. Now figure out what to do. So now we figured out Achashver, Kimi, Vikivli, it's a whole new Torah. Now there's a whole new Torah. This whole Torah was the old Torah. It's brutal. It's the Torah with the Reis. Now there's only Torah with the Rabbanan. The bris of the Torah that we have is Midrabanan. It's not Midrash. Okay, I'm saying you could. I'm saying because it's not in the Bible. We finished the whole Bible. The Bible ends with us coming back, but it kind of stops there. We finished, but the Torah Shebeksav, the Torah Shebeksav, literally, this is the end of the Tchim. It finishes. But also, it's okay. Maybe it finishes with Kiriyah. We can mark on a bit, but more or less.
Unless you're going to say with the now or there already.
Yes, I am Meshnaim. But we kind of finished this whole history. And
the second.
There's more of it. In the first one, it says okay, we can minds on yeah, the reason, if you ask me why I don't celebrate this and why it doesn't end that good, the reason is because we don't hold of this anymore. This is what they used to hold in the Zman Bayis tradition. The Bayis they don't really hold of this. I don't think. Maybe they do.
They don't hold of this pshat,
of this bris, we're not al Tanai. That's what I'm saying. We did when we battled the Tanai. From both sides, which when we say Bankach, Bunim, it's a very radical moment. Because we say no more. This is not, we're not al Tanai anymore. This Tanai didn't work. Tanai is, we try to get out of the Tanai. We try to get out of the Tanai from both sides. Like, look, we're gonna see. You know what the Muslim said? I swear that they're not going to do truth. So you have two choices. Either you make a gil or not. But Vatnish of Shiva, that's a lost case. But he's not the first one to say it. Chazal said this. In different versions of different people, but they're worried about this thing. Literally, got Shiva, got the Shiva, I guess. Well, so figure out something else. And that's why we don't talk about like this, and we have a whole different pshutim about Tanakh and so on.
That's what we were going to talk about.
That's why the Aguda doesn't say V'hishamdu she'im nach. The Aguda, again, the Aguda doesn't finish Vash Vaschanan, right? Chazal have this beautiful way of cutting up. My biggest example of the biggest example of this in the world is Yidgil Midrash Sharachim, right? There's no Yidgil Midrash Sharachim. There's Midrash Shaltin. Read the pasuk. It finishes ki v'nak lo yenaka pek davar never salmanim. And Chazal just literally took a scissor in the pasuk and said, no, we don't like this part. We're gonna literally cut a clause. It says v'nakai, ping it. Lo yenaka you could leave for yourself. Okay, and the head of v'nakai l'shovim lo yenaka l'aynav shovim, but we said the Yul Mitzvah. We just don't continue. We just cut up the pasuk. We're gonna believe in the God of Rachman. We're gonna ignore the whole din part because that was tried and didn't work. It failed. There was a chav by tradition. And shine, we have a new pshat. And read the Aguda. The Aguda does this. The Aguda says the story of the ben. Let's go here because I have it here. Right? The Aguda says the story of the ben Chocham, right? The Chocham of the Manishtan, the Chocham of Sefer Devarim, right? And there's, you can go here, right? The Chocham of Devarim has a Galde Kasha. Right? And the Mata Levencha. And we just stop this. We do this amazing thing. Right? Basically, a child's gonna ask you why we're doing now mitzvahs, right? This is the most beferish to get pusik that see my pshat, right? That's not about Mitzrayim. It's not even saying anything about Pesach or anything about Kaddish L'Kol B'Chol. Just about the mitzvahs. Kol ha'edus v'achikim ha'mishputim, right? And of course, Chazal had a beautiful way of reading this, but I can't. And Bekitze, and they said, again, what is he talking about? Right? And we saw it. And we got here. Why? Because we're not Mitzrayim. And this next to Psik, and we just skip. You know when we say it, by the way? Because Rishonah is Manadin. No Pesach, we ignore this. It's interesting. We don't say that's in the Nisach of the Matzah. I don't know where it's from. Yeah, we try to read it only off the good side also. But it says, and God gave us these mitzvahs, and He told us, of course, he sort of ignores this side. But it's Dukatiluni ki neshmalasas. You see it's a guy to get do. We're in Eretz Yisrael, it's a guy to get. You should know that this is not real. This is Altanai. This is going to continue if neshmalasas and v'yeshla and there's a teretz to your kashem u'eres v'chikim mishputim. Right? And then the Aguda Shel Parasach just stopped here and said, I don't care about the rest. That's not part of
the Sipur.
But the whole part of the Sipur was to say this is not matter, this is the pshat. And he just cut that part out. He said, we're going to focus on the good part, and we're going to skip the bad part. We're not going to have the Messiah Begnai. There's no Messiah Begnis. That could be.
But could be, I'm saying, Pesach could be, is this whole thing that we're celebrating it. So only taking out the Sipur that's the gay celebration.
But how do we, okay, so that's a good, that could be. But what does it mean, the celebration? Like, how does it work? Like, what is this? That we have to get to the sixth pshat, which is pshat of Mishchei Daich Maved Zor.
That was the main thing you wanted to get.
Yeah, and now we just has the other ones because a lot of different pshat. Yeah, the other pshat what I wanted to say was Bekitze Gudel that Pesach is the first mitzvah, and it says in the Pesach in both in Mishpatim and in Kisisa it says like this: L'hai Masech L'Sasalach, Es Chag Matzis Tishma. And the other one that says something similar, I don't remember. And basically, there's no darshan the same, but it's al pi pshat. The whole Kisiso is basically the Torah of Kisiso is literally the Rambam pshat and the Torah. That everything is about not having a Avodah. And it says shlosh legulam tochag li bashana. In other words, there's everyone has chagim like chag l'Hashem Mucha from the Egel and so on. But make sure not to do it like that. Do it li. Don't make a lahem masecha. Don't make an angle. Do it li. And the first thing you should do is Chag Matzes Tishma. You should do the matzes, and we can get into the prutim, how different prutim might be mevata this in the mitzvah of Chag Pesach. But the Pesach is just the first of the madim. I think that's attached to Chag Li, Lafika Tochag Li Avodah Zorah. Because all these, by the way, all these Chagim exist, and we know of that. The Rambam, we know that Chagim is not something we invented. Chagim is a very classic Avodah Hashem. Everyone does it. Halil Regel, Avodah Zura, and so on. You should do it for me. And first thing is Pesach, and you should celebrate the Pesach. How does Pesach show that this whole set is going to be li? It's going to be Avodah like we say, Avdei Hashem v'lei Avdei Parah, right? We say Al Korban Pesach, right? That's Halal Mitzri. It's Nemala, was probably written to be said on Korban Pesach. Right? I don't know. And it's all about that we're going to shecht LaHashem, and there's a lot of different prutim. I don't remember right now. In the Rambam goes through this pshat. Chometz. I have to tell you pshat about chometz. That's what it says. That's why we don't need chometz. Okay, and push a pshat, and it says in the Rambam, but it's also push a pshat in the Chumash that and we eat Pesach. And Shabbos Yom Tov Ulav Matis. That's what it says in Re'ai. That he told me that really last week. And in other words, right? That's also in other words, how literally that pasuk. In other words, if you read the pasuk in Kisisa and Mishpatim, you see it saying there's a list of 4 things. Let me show you. No. Parshas Kisisa is the best one. No. I want to say something else. I want to say like this, right? This parsha is like this. This is going to be the Nubris, right? And this is the Yidgum Midas. And Hinar Nechikoid is Bris. This is a Chazura on a big part of Mishpatim, right? Of the second part of Mishpatim, the Bris. This is Sefer Bris, right? Shema Lecho, Asher Nech Mitzavcho, right? Hini Goyrish, don't Pentichres Bris Le'Yoshev Uretz, as B'chayim Kitzel Le'Shtachva. Avodah Zorah, don't marry them, and don't do all kind of ways that can lead to Avodah Zorah. And when you should, I think that this is my shura, I don't have a pshat. Toichel matzes, I'm talking about matzes. L'moyed chodesh oviv, kim chodesh oviv. I think that first, apparently David Zura had a different month, and the big chodesh of the Torah was moving it to chodesh oviv, because it says 30 times, not 36 times. It says in the Chumash, Shomer es chodesh oviv, make sure to make Pesach chodesh oviv. Don't make Pesach in Shvat. It's a mistake. Why would you have this mistake? Of course, Chazal say, Shomer es chodesh oviv said it. That's the Drash. Pshat is something very important. You should make chodesh Pesach chodesh oviv. And why? Because this connects to Yetziat Mitzrayim, right? To Petach Hamor and so on.
That's a partial practice. It connects to Yetziat Mitzrayim.
So in other words, don't be choygig. Maybe let's make up a pshat. The Avodah Zorah was choygig chvei dalet shvat. Why? Because then was the getchke geboren geworden. And you'll be choygig when you went out of the getchke. Verstehst? Maybe we could find some history that makes sense of such a pshat. It's very important. Right. And it says in the Ayah also very explicitly. It's very important that Shemini Chodesh Oviv. And then it says, right. I think something I made up this chat because I have to bring it out that it was such a thing, but I see that it's very. That it's Kedei Sheyeh Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim. Kedei shouldn't be Stam, but Kibbutz Chodesh Oviv Tzach Mitzrayim. And that's all the Chodesh Selechem and all of that. And then Shvius has to machen Chag Osef. These, by the way, it doesn't even say how you make Shvius or how you make Sukkos, because obviously everyone knows how to make a Chag Osef. Whatever, Mach Kabonis, but there's such a thing. And then Shlosh Pamishon Rukos Chichas B'nei Adar. And then this is a hamshich to the previous problem with the Goyim, whatever. Don't worry about the Goyim. And then it says like this: 4 mitzvahs, 3 or 4 mitzvahs, right? L'sish l'chom es dam zevchi, l'il nabayk ezeh v'chag Pesach, reish b'kirad masach tov v'shem l'kechel, l'svash l'kechel l'evimai. 4 random mitzvahs that don't seem. I generally think that that's the makar to eat milchik on Shvius, because it says b'ferish, reish b'kirad masach tov v'shem l'kechel, l'svash l'kechel l'evimai. But basically, the way I understand, and the Rambam understood it like this, is that this is all a fikah derech Avodah Zorah. By the way, Mishpatim it says like b'ferish, l'vayach l'lim yachram bitul Hashem levada. In other words, don't you see that the shigi of kabunas and ends with also is don't make kabunas Avodah Zorah. And there's ways to do that. There's a way to do it lalehim, to seirim and so on. And don't do it to me. These people are mamish l'Rambam pshat and kabunas. Not mamish l'Rambam pshat because the Rambam would say it doesn't have a meaning besides for that, according to some readings of the Rambam. But it's yes true that a big part of mitzvahs are kabunas and dinner prutim of kabunas ala fikah to do kabunas Avodah Zorah. I think that it says meferish. The Rambam there's a medrash and the Rambam l'mal is b'chiyod as v'chem v'asirim. It's a mefarish pasuk. No. And the way I understand it, that these mitzvahs, this list of mitzvahs, what is Neirash B'kirat Mascha? Everyone brings Rashes B'kirim. Make sure it's Luvi Beis Hashem Lekechel. Al Tuvi it's a Beis Baal. Don't bring it by something else. Bring it by Hashem Lekechel. And what's Leishavash the Rambam says he doesn't know. I think we did found, but it's short to him that the David Zura had some minhag of being Bashal G'di B'chlevi. The Torah is saying don't do it. Probably has to do with the karbonas. Maybe they had some ritual with something to do with that. He doesn't. I think someone did find the Psamakar. I don't think it's that. But the Rambam says it all the books that he read over the Zura didn't say this, because he had fake books anyways. But I think there is such a makar. And that's why I think L'sish Talchum Dam Zivchi, which is basically something to do, I don't know, Chazal understand have a pshat on this, but it's something to do with this has something to do with not doing it like David Zura did. And probably Lil Nabek is also, maybe David Zura had a minute to tafki eat in the morning. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up now.
And it was Al Chometz also, they shechted Al Chometz.
Yeah, Al Chometz, no. Al Chometz just means Al Matzah Bered Mechli. Don't eat it Al Chometz. Al Pip Shat. Al Chometz is always like Al Matzah Bered Mechli. Like Al Toide Mavim Chales Matzahs, right? Remember? V'ayvi Al Toide, that's such a language. Al means with. Al means... Yeah. Al means with, like Al Matzah Bered Mechli. Every time we're being a Toide, by this Pesach is a Korban Toide, basically, right? You know. Right? Korban Toide, we bring Chales. Pesach is basically a Korban Toide. And we bring Chales, ala lechem, and so on. And now it's important that it should be matzah and not chametz. Why? We know this, and the Rambam says, because of the Tzura are makbet to bring dvash and se'or for the kabbonis. He quotes, the Rambam here quotes the book that he read. It said, all the kabbonis dafen zan se'or, all the minchas, like all the kabbonis with lechem. Kim the Torah ends, you're not going to have chametz. And not only for one day, for 7 days. You know why? Se'or mitzvah v'techem, there's only 2 things in the world that have such a bali mitzvah, which are chametz and maved zura. And of course, the Zohar and all of them try to connect Chometz and Avodah from Al Pi Drash, but Al Pi Pshat, it's true. In other words, I'm very worried, and it's the Hadrama would say it, I'm very worried that you're going to put some Chometz on your Mizbeach, because Efshedach, you know these Firim, I'm very worried about these Firim of the Efshedach, you know, everyone knows that God's like Chometz, my son, everyone knows. And you could think, there's reasons for this, by the way, there's logic in that, there's no mistake. Everyone knows that God's like Sar. Making a carbon, this is like the very important carbon, by the way, it's like the Norgal carbon. Yeah, it's a very important carbon, and we're going to make chametz, so the Torah came here. Nicht nur, make sure, the ganze Stiebel ist nicht chametz. Bechol gewilach, nicht chametz in the ganze land, you know what? Not even, the chametz is seichem, okay? Not even in the Besmikdash. Just don't have chametz for a whole week. And that's why we make sure this, because this is the first purge, and Korban, this is lafika, this is when you're stopping to be avdei pare, in other words, avdei lahai pare, right? Avdei, whatever the guy's God's name over there was, maybe they didn't, and then to be avdei Hashem. So you have to, so we do a big ariches of being bevatel the chametz and then on Shvius we do the opposite. We say instead of bringing the chametz lavetzudas, bring the chametz lashem. But it's just 2 sides of the same thing. That's why the kasha of chametz is schlecht, it's not chametz that's schlecht. What's schlecht is that this is the minhag of the zura, because they had some. Maybe we could figure out the theory and get that's what's schlecht. So there's basically 2 ways of getting out. The first way is la the chametz, no chametz. No shaykhs, when the Rambam goes through a lot of different, the Rambam says that Chipuzna is also lafik that, and Seh, of course, that's Chazal, right? Because they're nak, they thought that says the God itself, and Nakrava say all these things. It's literally shechting the Zura. And like I said, noise, they must have something to do with that, and so on. And he says, anyways, he says a lot of things like that, and I think probably the Goyim used to break out so much. I'm just making stuff up now. But that's for sure. And the Chometz, I'm sure that it's like this. Because otherwise, this connection of Chometz being Osel Mizbech and being Osel Pesach and so on must have something to do with each other. And it's pushed that's Lafika Vedazura that used to do Chometz. And therefore, we're going to not be machik from Chometz to Mashi. The only thing in the Torah to say Mashi is Yain Nesach. Chometz Yain Nesach, Mashi. Yeah, that's Chaluch of Chazal. But Torah is feedback about the Torah has this language of the Zura, and you see, this is all about this. Don't even get close to the Zura, right? Don't even have it. Yeah, that's literally what it says. You see that mechitunim are the very important relationship, right? Don't give your daughter because you're mechitin. That's what it's saying, right? I'm sorry. Yes. And that's why l'sish tal chometz dam zivchi. Understand? Because zivchi v'lo zevach shelo.
This thing al chometz is it says somewhere?
I don't know. I'm sure it says some in the Even Ezra and the Rashbam. I think that shchita, because you have to get this because Pesach is a zevach and zevach is shlomim, and by shlomim I think that generally my pshat is that the Rambam is right on shlomim and not on ola or chatos. Because shlomim is beferish, lemani is bechid, b'chem nasirim. Okay, can't share down this. So I could put in Pesach is a kind of shlomim, technically, or a toida basically. In other words, the main thing is the eating it, not the shechting. Maybe there's dam lemizbach or so on, but the main thing is the eating it. He talked about it also already. Right, because you eat mestach shnaf fleish mest mit brot. The lechem is for us, right? We might give a trimel lemizbach. What? Yeah, I'm coming in 5 minutes. About 3 o'clock. And yeah, so that's I think that the challah is just a hemshech of the ala matzah, and of course Shevas Yom is like the biggest. Like just like there's a chuvah in Mukim, like your whole house shouldn't have matzah. There's a chuvah in Zman. If I'm asked to come by Zimtek, but don't have anything to do with chametz. By the way, there's a meaning in this because if you think about this, I'm telling you, I'm sure this is things that I didn't make up. I'm sure. If you think about the thing with Sa'id is something like this: that Sa'id is the zayd of chametz, right? In other words, when you have, and we don't do bread too much at home, but if you make challah or whatever, but what? Yeah, no.
The siva.
Right. No, the zayd and they take a shtickle soda, you put it into that. That's the tata. Right. So now, and if you want to have a house with chametz, generally you bake lechem. So there's lechem that you bake every day beside that, and then there's soy that's nimshach initial is man rav, right? Because you have to make sure if your soy gets used up, you're natura, because it's very hard to start it. It's a whole process. You have to. It's very the thing that people do generally, and that's how we do al mazeh is you have to keep this oil running as long as you a ganze year. There's elbe soil nitzman a ganze year. Lechem macht man an jeden Tag, but soil nitzman is elbe a ganze year. Okay, you add shtiklech and so on, but it's because otherwise it's very hard to get to that level of chimit that you need for soil to work. I don't remember this. I've read online people there's a problem. They have to usually, in a certain sense, all of our soil is eigentlich from the elbe soil from Pare. Like, because it starts. It's a bacteria, whatever. You have to. Otherwise it dies, and you can't just take lechem. It doesn't become soil. You have to. There's some way to make it, but and therefore, besides that, now we're very smart, but it's very hard, and therefore it's like fire. If you think about fire had a different. It's very hard to start fire. So therefore, in Rome they had literally the eternal fire, which the whole city. They were very makbid. That's to do with this, because it's hard to get fire going. Of course, with a match it's easy, but if you don't have matches yet, it's hard. So the Eitze for them is that I got fire, and all the fires in the world will be eigentlich from that fire. And we have the question, who made the first fire? Oh, the Marishim must have brought us from the Maluchim, you know. The Greeks had a story about that, and we have a story about that. Okay, now, what do I want to say? So Oya is very similar like this. In other words, the Torah when it says the Torah is very interesting with what do you want from Sa'oida? Sa'oida is Chumrasot Chumetz, okay? Keseves, Kezaitze, what do you want from me? No, it's saying like this. You do not have a possibility to make Chumetz anymore. That's why this Shivas Yom. Shivas Yom is enough time for this earth to die. In other words, I want to take away. I don't want you to not have chumetz. I want you to not be able to make chumetz. And after Pesach, you're going to struggle because I don't know how you restart this. Every year after Pesach, we have to figure out a way to get new soil. I don't know where to get it from. Maybe buy it from a goy. Figure out a way. But I don't want you to even be able to make chumetz. And the 7 days, I like to make a half stick. Like instead, like you can't use it to be machmetz. Another thing. You just have to restart. That's why this oil is such important. And that I think that's what the Zuda were makrif sa'ir, because you see, you understand it. That is very important for human civilization. It's like yain, like when we makrif yain on Mizbech Mesamach Elim, yain is magic. It actually happens by itself. Maybe that's why. I have a kasha why Pesach would drink wine, because wine is technically yeast. It's the same thing as sa'ir. Very interesting. It has to do with Chachma and Binna, with the clippers. My teretz was that the clippers of Binna are stronger than the clippers of something like that. Yeah, because Lechem is Chachma and Yan is something like that. That is talked about Katnas the Abba and Katnas Dema. So, anyways, I don't remember. I think I had such a question because Yan is basically Sa'ir. And basically yeast. It's basically
they're both fermentation things.
They're both similar concept, and that's why people thought of wine as godly. Because you take these grapes and you just leave them, and suddenly they change your mind. Wine, that's amazing, right? And so it is very similar. So people said, okay, this is Fadav Dezura. And the Torah, for some reason, doesn't hold of that. The Yain, they do hold of. The Yain, by the way, the Rambam was very upset at it. The Rambam doesn't understand why Yain is, why Manastic Yain on his back. It's the one thing he doesn't understand for Kabbalah. Guy Verstein. Very interesting, all the things that the Rambam doesn't understand. Like, Pink doesn't do it. He says that Yain doesn't understand. Nothing. Has to do with this. And, but the Sa'ir has to do with this. And the Torah says, don't do like that. Give me matzah. The Mizbech likes matzah more than it likes. I don't know what the pshat of this. You think of the symbol of this. I just explained the symbol of the faket, the symbol I understand. It could be just lafik them. It could be that's like not real tachlis. Maybe it's just l'srachik ma'avazin. But I'm saying that's the.
I think you have to explain us why it came when they were running out of Mitzrayim. Like the Torah doesn't say this reason.
Oh, that's okay. No, it does say that reason. The Torah says that reason. It's a stira. The stira. Okay, well, I told that. That's the but it has to do, because going out of Mitzrayim means not having matzah. In other words, stopping to din of the zura in some sense. That would be the pshat. Okay.
We're stopping to, we don't say that in the what do you call it, in the time of mitzvahs.
About what?
In Gamliel time of mitzvahs, the matzah has to do with something else. No, I'm just saying it has something.
That's the time that it says in there's a steer in Parshas Boim. That's not it. Didn't make it up. And it's shilas, which if we eat the matzahs of Mitzrayim or the matzahs of Yetzias Mitzrayim.
This prat, you eat the matzahs of Mitzrayim.
No, I don't know. I don't know how to. I hear the shaila, but I don't get to figure out that part. It's has to do with. I'm mostly worried about the isech chometz and the isech of matzah. Understand? It's two different things. So I think that matzah. I think that matzah has that pshat. It's ganz good pshat, but I don't understand why chometz is so bad. Always have this problem. Okay. We supposing you so eat matzah. Okay. Why are we so afraid of chometz suddenly? And it's funny because the whole year we're not afraid of it. Then it's a problem. And this teretz makes teretz for that. Understand? So you should not. It's a harchok. I kriege doile mi akrovas chometz al zivchi. Leshich chometz dam zivchi.
It's only because now there's man of zevach.
Because this is the first zivch. That's why you get. By the way, that's why v'chi.
Why 7 days?
I told you because 7 days makes a hefsek between the chometz and the matzah. Between the so you die. So you don't have.
No, but who cares after the first day? It should be 7 days before the carbon.
Besides, no. So this is being mechayiv you to throw out your side, something like that. But I understand the child, but I don't know. I'm saying what did I say? That's why the ger has to make a paisach, right? That's the thing. A ger means some of that stuff obviously doesn't mean that. And mila is the same as this has to do with this, right? You have to stop being a guy, stop being a. But that's very important. That's a ger means someone that. That's why it makes sense. All the other mitzvahs don't make sense, but a Korban Pesach makes sense. Sikkes maybe doesn't make sense. And you're going to mitzvah, but Korban Pesach is not about being in the middle of a ket. And Yetzias Mitzrayim is about not being of the party and being of the Hashem. So, die bist doch of the Hashem. Verkehrt, nach Pesach.
That's saying the sixth pshat. Yetzias Mitzrayim is whatever.
Yetzias Mitzrayim is another way of saying, man dient nicht, the God from Mitzrayim was erst chometz, and the Eibishter was erst matzah. And therefore we also eat matzah. That's why the Chassidish Yidden will say that eating matzah is like God eating or whatever, eating God, however you want to say it. Has to do with that.
That doesn't sound good.
I'm sorry. Me'estelekis. That sounds better.
I know. It bothers me that lesson. Shav, no, Shav. You're really it doesn't sound good. It sounds like wafers and massing like this thing.
No, well, what do you have against wafers and this? You see? Okay, sorry. Okay, enough ending. My wife, yeah.